So much of the news this year has been hopeless, depressing, and above all, confusing. To which the only response is, oh dear. But what this film is going to suggest is that that defeatist response has become a central part of a new system of political control. And to understand how this is happening, you have to look to Russia, and to a man called Vladislav Surkov, who is a hero of our time. Surkov is one of President Putin's advisors and has helped him maintain his power for 15 years. But he has done it in a very new way.
Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin.
He came originally from the avant-garde art world, and those who have studied his career say that what Surkov has done is import ideas from conceptual art into the very heart of politics. His aim is to undermine people's perception of the world, so they never know what is really happening. Surkov turned Russian politics into a bewildering, constantly changing piece of theatre. He sponsored all kinds of groups, from neo-Nazi skinheads to liberal human rights groups. He even backed parties that were opposed to President Putin. But the key thing was that Surkov then let it be known that this was what he was doing, which meant that no one was sure what was real or fake. As one journalist put it, it's a strategy of power that keeps any opposition constantly confused, a ceaseless shape-shifting that is unstoppable because it's indefinable.
Welcome to the Michael Brooks Show. We're broadcasting live from Brooklyn, New York, where left is best, with super producer Matt Leck.
Yo.
Head theoretician David Grishcom.
Good evening.
Hold my beer. Hold my beer, bro. Super producer David Slavic. He is in the Digitosphere, the Discord, roaming the internet, keeping everything alive with the TMBS militia. On this week's program, Crystal Quade. She is a Missouri State Rep, left-wing Democrat. We're talking about the state of Missouri. Can populist politics win? How to defeat austerity and the populist far right. Then Felix Biederman of Chapo Trap House. He's here. We're comparing Obama impressions. We're dunking on Meghan McArdle, one of the worst people on planet Earth, and she really doesn't get how bad she is. And then we're playing a game called Gulag or Reeducation. It's going to be an interesting contest. We have a series of people where we're going to go head-to-head. Do they need to be sent away permanently? Or is it possible that they can be re-educated and brought back to live in a decent society? Felix and I will go over that in the main show and in the post-game for patrons. Plus, we've got an incredibly annoying Mick Resistance pundit that is going to go into the pyramid. A shout-out that involves terrible local news coverage and important reform in the criminal justice system.
Shout out Pittsburgh DSA.
Shout out Pittsburgh DSA. And I guess shout out Mark Zuckerberg for this brilliant idea that local news is going to be more progressive and community building, or whatever other delusions are rocking around in that dangerous nerd's head. All that and so much more on this week's Michael Brooks Show. But first, we got to talk about strategy. We got to talk about the left, and we got to talk about how we win. I do this show, and we do this show and the work we do because we want to win, not to have power or have the trappings of power or prestige. That's fine. That's fun. That's part of the process. And we're working towards it. But the real goals, if you are serious about this process, are things like every single person in this country, in fact, every single person on this globe, should have health care, should have a high standard of living, should have the basic material abundance to lead an actualized life. We want to decommodify housing, decommodify healthcare, break up oligarchies, create more free time for people so that they can express themselves in different ways so that they can pursue athletics, arts, culture, spend time with their families, spend time in their communities. We have a vision. And we also see the incredible price of human suffering of the choices that we have taken politically and economically and culturally in our modern world. We see the endless wasted lives. We see the brutality. Here's the reality, though. While the left is at, in some ways, an advantage because we speak for and to the interests of a majority of people, we're also going up against a hegemonic power base which has unlimited military, financial, ideological, media resources. We have wealth inequalities that dwarf the medieval era, let alone the Gilded Age or the 1920s. And as I've said before, oligarchy can always negotiate with the populist far right, even if they don't like it, because fundamentally, what's demonizing a few immigrants? Fundamentally, what's people blowing off some racial steam if it does not fundamentally alter the balance of power and distribution, which of course it does not. And we see it in Trump, and we see that in all these other right-wing thug leaders rising globally. So we need to be on point. We need to organize. We need to harness our power, and we need to be really smart about where we make our interventions, how we make our case. There's no room for us to be dum-dums. Unfortunately, I mean, there's tendencies that manifest in a variety of ways. There's still people with the centrist delusion. There's still the people sort of peddling nonsense about compromises. There's centrists supporting AstroTurf groups undermining the fight for Medicare for all. And make no mistake, that's an incredibly positive sign, because as soon as the AstroTurf groups start to protect the parasitic pharma and insurance industries, you know that we're advancing in that fight for global universal health care for every single American, universal national health care in this country. There has been the vampire castle and some of this sort of toxic cultural politics on the left, obsessed with performance and not liberation, more interested in minding manners than winning real battles, that has alienated some people and isn't a good look. And in this specific realm, the universe of YouTube, it seems to predominate, there is unfortunately still a dum-dum left. There are dum-dums who confuse moral posturing with revolutionary fervor, who confuse ahistorical throwing anything at the wall and endless whining about Democrats for a real radical stance towards politics, that confuse a couple of irrelevant protest votes for a marginal candidate for a serious commitment to revitalizing power, to actually seizing power in this country. And I get why that's emotionally appealing to people, because you know what? We live in absolutely disgusting times, and the governing class of this country and the globe is disgusting. It's exploitative, it's abusive, it's cruel, it's stupid, it's arrogant, it's insular, and they need to be mocked, ridiculed, debunked, and they need to be taken out. Keep it simple. We need to keep it as simple as it can be, but not simpler than that, unfortunately. So this left needs to be smart, it needs to be radical, it needs to be strategic, and it needs to be brave. Now, speaking of this, and this is totally unprompted, totally random transition, didn't plan this at all, just happened. There was a recent leading dum-dum on YouTube occurrence that may have in fact related to me and this show. So this is totally unprompted. Matt just brought this up right before the show. It's totally unprompted. We came across this piece of dum-dumism.
And if you ever heard people saying, I heard someone say the other day, you know, now, especially with the DACA people, you know, they're being, their lives are being, you know, 6-year-old, brought here as 6-year-old kids, and now that you should have voted for Hillary. Someone actually said that on a news show the other day. So you should have voted because of DACA. How dumb could you be? Pretty dumb, by the way. Still defending voting for Hillary, even though it was Hillary who propped up Donald Trump. She completely rigged the primary to screw over to make sure the only person who could lose to Donald Trump lost to Donald Trump. That's what Hillary... And you still want us to vote for the person who cheated us out of Bernie. You still want to vote for the person who completely got us Donald Trump.
That's all that matters.
You think we got Donald Trump because everybody loved what the fucking Democrats were doing? Because everybody loved how Barack Obama handled shit? Because everybody loved how Bill Clinton handled shit? No, we got Donald Trump because Democrats got in power and fucked everybody over, you dummy. And if we didn't get Trump this time, we were going to get a worse Trump next time. Because your inability to think past one election cycle is why you're a dummy and no one listens to you.
A worse Trump.
It's unbelievable. People still saying that with a straight face. See, because of DACA, this is why we all should have voted for Hillary.
And
well, you all did fucking vote for Hillary. I don't know if you noticed that. And you could have actually voted for a third party and made a difference with your vote, but you didn't. You voted like a stupid corporate neoliberal. You did the lesser of two evils.
Well, it's been come to my attention that apparently this guy, and I will use his name and his clip, Jimmy Dore, was talking about me. I was on the Young Turks a couple of weeks ago, and in the context of talking about DACA, I said, yeah, this is why you engage in strategic voting, because of the several million DACA recipients who are jeopardized now. It's pretty simple, and as you could see there was a lot of bloviating. He didn't actually answer that question. He says this kind of emotional fixation on Hillary Clinton. But look, apparently I'm a dummy, and I guess I talked like I didn't realize, though, that I said, and this is why I got to vote for Hillary Clinton. I got to check my TYT appearance to see what I was talking like. I know that Jimmy's not an impressionist, but maybe he was trying to get something there. But look, this is Jimmy's Twitter handle, where there's a lot of tweets about, dumb things that Barack Obama did and said. There's a lot of tweets about how horrible Hillary is. There's a lot of tweets about, how garbage a lot of garbage liberals are. Very little to do with, the people that are actually running the country right now, which is sort of interesting. If you're sort of like in the news and politics business and you barely have anything to say about the president of the United States, who's actually a far-right corporatist.
Neoliberalism is one thing, but galloping fascism, maybe spare a thought for it.
Yeah, maybe spare a thought. And actually, in fact, voting for a garbage candidate like Hillary would have actually been great, because then we still would be in a position where neoliberalism was the main issue. Unfortunately, now it's not. But the top of this Twitter, of Jimmy's Twitter feed, he has a tweet, and I think this is a real one. I think before he had a George Orwell tweet, which wasn't actually an Orwell tweet.
Yep.
This is a Chomsky tweet that says, any dictator would admire the uniformity and the obedience of the U.S. media. And I can only imagine that Chomsky was talking about people like me who advocated not voting like a fucking, child during the campaign. I'm sure that Jimmy thinks that Noam is smart. Here's what Noam Chomsky had to say a couple of weeks after the election, that noted corporate shill and sellout. Noam Chomsky.
What's your message to those voters today who refuse to vote for Trump or refuse to vote to stop Trump? What's your message to them now that he's won and he's in the White House?
Same as before. I think they're making a bad mistake. First of all, there are two issues. One is a kind of a moral issue. Do you vote against the greater evil if you don't happen to like the other candidate? The answer to that is yes, if you have any moral understanding. You want to keep the greater evil out. Second is a factual question. How do Trump and Clinton compare? And I think they're very different. I didn't like Clinton at all, but her positions are much better than Trump's on every issue I can think of.
What a fucking corporate sellout. Noam Chomsky's a fucking coward, and this is why people don't subscribe to his YouTube channel. No one listens to him because he's a fucking corporate sellout. Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton, and he just said he loved there, she's the reason that Trump's the fucking president, and you still fucking talk, you dummy. Matt had pointed out that my personal fondness of Jimmy Dore, which, look, he was wrong during the election. And even that point that he makes that like, oh, the next Trump will be worse. Look, voting is not your fantasy football draft. And Jimmy's whole analysis of the campaign was, in 2020, there'll be a much worse candidate who will beat Hillary, which is possible, but not certain. What we had was certain was what was in front of us, not in your fantasy scenario. And then that if Trump won, there would be a big uprising. And things like, Supreme Court picks could just be filibustered. And any other type of rational assessment of the election was just fear-based thinking. Now, here's the problem, among many. If your lane is really that American society needs a radical transformation, I don't even know what Jimmy truly wants. I know that we need to end capitalism. I know that we need to transition to economic democracy. I know that getting there is going to take all sorts of interventions, activism, politics, and things that don't involve presidential campaigns. Truly radical actions across the board and forms of solidarity. And then I also know that what you do is you vote if there's an opportunity, as in Bernie Sanders' case, to actually advance things. That's the best case scenario. And then besides that, you vote to stop the bleeding. And you vote because actually, in reality, we know that in most cases, left resistance is built in places not of accelerationist horror, but in really bad conditions where there's a little bit of opening to push back. That's actually the context of the Russian Revolution as an example. That's how it happened, because there were compromises. There was some weakenings in the system. Revolutionaries were able to seize on that. So intentionally saying, I'm going to take a situation, and by the way, this is not somebody who is saying in the middle of the country who's like, look, I've been fucked over by the political establishment. I've been abused by players on both sides, and I'm done. I'm through with it. I'm not voting. Or maybe I've been sucked in by the Trump scam, or maybe I'm doing a protest vote. I have no judgment for those people. No comment. But if you're a political commentator sitting on your ass in LA who doesn't do basic research and is playing with people's lives because of a fantasy scenario in your head about what could be, that has been debunked through every step of this administration. Okay, here's what's happened. No, there wasn't a filibuster on the Supreme Court. Gorsuch is there. There's cases coming down that will radically deepen the war on organized labor in this country, on public sector unions. You think there's going to be any type of left without Labor Party power in this country? Without labor power? There's no left in the world that didn't have labor power. Now, did Democrats sell out labor and take corporate contributions? Absolutely. So your answer to a revanchist far right that's doing even more than any previous administration on labor is to go back into history and bitch about Democrats fucking up on that issue. What we on the actual left who care about actually achieving things are doing is fighting all of these fronts simultaneously. But actually, in fact, focusing now on the main threat. I said if you were in a swing state, vote for Hillary because I wanted to keep the main threat and the main problem be those fucking neoliberals and corporatists that we do have to defeat, not galloping fascists. But you know what? It's a good business model. Outrage is a good business model, and it's easy click content. Why figure out a Supreme Court ruling when you can endlessly bitch about an MSNBC segment? Why do strategy that points out that, of course, Obama had an obscene record on deportations, and Trump is worse, when you can do, 10 segments on how when Kamala Harris supported single payer, but she didn't say it with the right amount of enthusiasm. This is middle school gossip and your fantasy life. It's not politics. I was on Jimmy's show once, and he was doing this riff before the election. And I went with him on a lot of this shit. Yeah, Hillary was terrible. Hillary was terrible on war. She was terrible on corporations. She had a terrible record on everything from race to welfare. We know this. And then I would just drop these seeds. Well, difference, Iran deal. There's a difference. DACA. And I remember one time he goes, yeah, you're right on the DACA. That's true. Donald Trump did slightly increase his margin with Hispanic voters. I think a lot of that has to do with many Hispanic voters being American citizens who were also brought in by his economic scam. I don't think, as Jimmy speculated later in that video, that people who were enraged at Obama's deportations voted to punish Obama by voting for the most overtly xenophobic presidential candidate in modern history. Just a thought. Dude, if you want to do politics, you got to fucking understand the issues. It's not all just emotions and fantasy life. Or if you want to do emotions and fantasy life, then own it and just do critique, and that's great. But don't call people who actually care about the process and bother to do some fucking research dummies because they look at things a little bit structurally. It's an easy hustle. It's an easy market. It's an easy game. But it's not contributing to anything. It's not going to help us win. And to me, it seems like, if anything, at this point, this is helping Trump. If we have to fight neoliberals, we have to fight Trump, we have to fight establishment Democrats, we have to deal with the corporate hegemony, we have to deal with ideological conformity of a global elite, do we really need to spend our time on YouTube just giving people dumb emotional releases? Or actually help them think about how they actually get power? And I know that was spoken like a true fucking corporate sellout. The fuck out of here, man. Do some research. Get serious. And don't be a coward. You didn't mention my name. You haven't had Sam on your show. Engage.
That's really the thing, is he's just an abject coward with all this stuff.
You can talk a lot of shit. Cool.
Snipe from Twitter,
subtweet, all that bullshit. Look, I would say come on this show and debate me. I would do it, but I can't keep giving you platforms if you have not had Sam on to return the favor. You had Sam had you on. He let you call in live on Majority Report when he was politely debunking some nonsense you were saying about the election. You couldn't defend yourself. The debate didn't go well. And that was it. But you called in live and he gave you, I don't know, like 20 or 30 minutes to debate it. Don't be a coward. Or don't fucking talk about us. Simple. Make records that disrespect me, blatant or indirectly. I didn't even give you my numbers. All right, everybody. We are at over 1,000 patrons. Thanks all of you so much. Wolfenstein's happening next week. We've got the illicit history of Emmanuel Macron's first year in office and his neoliberal agenda coming out on Sunday. A history of gamer identity and the corporate influence over the gaming industry coming up soon. This week, for Comrade and above level patrons, I'm hosting a group call with Luke Mayville, who co-founded an activist grassroots group in Idaho. We're talking about how to organize for the left in rural states and other corporate fucking sellout topics. All that and more. This is how we win. I'm not accountable to anybody but you. I'll always give you what I really think, and I will always fight for this mass transformation of society we need. Patreon.com/TMBS. It's how we pay all the bills, how we pay everybody in the crew, which is how this is possible. Rent to Sam, and spread the word for that smart, revolutionary shit that we really need. Thanks, everybody. Patreon.com/TMBS. We're on the move. We'll be right back with Crystal Quade. Welcome back to the Michael Brooks Show. I'm Michael Brooks. Joining us now is Crystal Quade. She is a Democrat representing she represents part of Greene County, District 132 in the Missouri House of Representatives, and she was elected to her first term in office in November 2016. So that was one of the best pieces of news we got on election night. Crystal, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
So we periodically are starting to drop in on this show with people in the electoral process. Actually, in the future, we're doing it globally. We're in the talks of having people from the Labour Party in the UK, Podemos in Spain. Briefly, explain where you're coming from politically, where you are on the map, and what you're trying to do to influence the Missouri Democratic Party.
Yeah, well, I grew up in a very small town in Missouri in a very conservative household and area. But I now, as an adult, am very progressive. I am a social worker by trade and a first-generation high school graduate as well. So I come from a very socially progressive realm. But I do represent a very conservative part of the state. I'm actually the only Democrat in the entire southern half of the state in the House of Representatives. And my legislative district went to President Trump in the higher 60% realm, and I'm the only Democrat who actually won from the top all the way down in my district. So, it's an interesting place to be as someone who is personally very progressive, but also represents a 50-50 area of, standing true to my personal values, but also doing my best to represent those around me too.
So how did you do that? Because my understanding is there's the traditional narrative that's been sold by the Democratic establishment is that the way you win in a 50-50 district is actually by really placating on a lot of issues. And I think that what you've done, my read, is that you've stayed really clear in terms of you're progressive, you're open on various justice and social issues, but you've connected to a broader district, I guess, by really emphasizing the needs of things like economic justice, fighting back against austerity, and that's sort of counter to the usual sort of game that's been sold by the Democratic establishment.
And I think the quote game, as you call it, is not really working anymore. And I really, to answer how I did it, it was being honest with my constituents. Unfortunately, we encourage folks sometimes to not run as progressive as they may be, or on the flip side of that too. But I put it all out there. I took endorsements of organizations like Planned Parenthood and PROMO, which is our statewide LGBT organization. And I didn't shy away from any of the activism work that I'd done for any of those groups. But when I knocked doors, which I knocked a lot, I knocked over 80,000 times in the district, that wasn't what I talked about. I talked about the things that mattered to those people at those doors, whether that was child care programming, access to good schools, good jobs with living wages is a big issue in my district. And so I was very honest and open about my stances if I was ever asked about them, particularly on social issues. But I just talk to them and ask what folks want me to work on. And surprisingly, those wedge issues that the media likes to think that, really focus on is not what the people at the doors really cared about.
Right. What were those? I mean, you mentioned some of them, but what was maybe the one or two issues that you hear about most on the doorsteps?
Yeah. Well, my district is it's a great district, but it is a little different than others because I have a lot of universities. I have a really thriving downtown full of small businesses and entrepreneurs. And then I have a very lower income working class part of the district too. So if you look at the entire city of Springfield where I'm at, the lower income part of that is also in my district. So it depended on where I was and who I was talking to. But overarchingly, I would say access to quality health care that's not going to bankrupt the people in Missouri. Access to a great education and it being affordable when you're talking about higher education. And then opportunities for small businesses, small business owners, and living wages all at the same time.
What's going on with your governor? And is that helpful in terms of, I mean, I'll just say, like, in general, I'm not really interested. Like, I don't really care about hypocrisy stories per se. I mean, the guy seems like a pretty scummy guy. I could have guessed he was a scummy guy before I heard any of this stuff. But is there something from a political case-making standpoint where you're like, on one hand, this guy is out terrorizing the state. He's cutting everything. He's savaging working and middle-class people all over the place. And, demanding all this quote-unquote sacrifice. And then he and his own and kind of personal, he's got this affair. Like, he and his way of dealing with things are a total mess.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will say that even before the latest news events, the way he is governed has been very different than what we are used to. And while it's my first time as an elected official, even as a brand new person in the building, the way he has always operated with us as elected officials has not been traditional. Mm-hmm. So in terms of what it does for us politically, as a member of government, as an elected official, something like what's going on right now is not a good thing in general. I mean, there is already very low trust in government, and when you add something like this on top of it, it doesn't help us, and it really further destroys the institution. And as someone who believes in the institution and is trying to preserve it, that's unfortunate. Now, all that said, this in the era of the president and this very aggressive style of politics on top of this nefarious stuff going on, I think we will see a play in the political turnout and how that looks. I think that people are obviously very frustrated and very upset with what's going on. So it will be interesting to see how that affects us when the elections roll around.
Do you think that, is your play to basically say, look, I'm here actually working to deliver for people on real issues, raise their wages, increase their opportunity, fight against these cuts? Or do you think that Democrats also need to be more willing to kind of like, if need be, sort of throw some elbows, because the other side is, we even see in Pennsylvania, right? Like they're trying to remove multiple members of this Pennsylvania Supreme Court over a redistricting case. I mean, it starts to get to a point where it's like, it seems like it's not just necessary to kind of like, it's not just like posturing or something. It's like literally you have a party that is so fundamentally disrespectful of this process that if Democrats don't learn to disrespect the process or be a bit more aggressive themselves, they're going to be totally marginalized.
I think it's an interesting balance. Here in Missouri, we're in a super minority. There are 46 Democrats out of 163. Oh, wow. And so it is an interesting balance. And if I want to get policy through, we've got to respect the fact that there's only 46 of us. But that said, I think Democrats across the entire country for too long have been playing defense. Right. And one thing that I see here, particularly in the Missouri House, is when we're playing offense and not just saying, look how bad they are, they're cutting all these things, look at this terrible stuff they're doing, but actually put forward solutions and ideas and run with them and aggressively advocate for those things and work on them, we're actually seeing progress there. So to your point, I don't know that disrespecting the process is something that I want to jump into as well.
Yeah, that's the wrong phrasing, but maybe more aggressive, yeah.
Yeah, I think being aggressive and playing offense is what I say all the time here. Democrats, particularly like in Missouri and other states like ours, because we have been in these super minorities, it's very easy to say they're doing it wrong. But people right now want answers and solutions and ideas. They don't just want to hear us point fingers and say, look how bad they are. And so that's what we're seeing in Missouri in this kind of era of new birth for the party and really redefining who we are and what we stand for is a new wave of kind of, I call those activist legislators, where we are being aggressive with our policy ideas, but also doing it in a way that still preserves the institution and is actually seeing it get hopefully across the finish line.
And how is the receptivity to this message from the more, traditional Democratic leadership? I mean, I mean, obviously, I don't think it's not a point of conflict, and I'm sure you support her reelection. But Claire McCaskill's obviously, is more of a conservative Democrat in a lot of ways. I mean, is the traditional leadership receptive to this? Because, it's as the results sort of speak for themselves. I mean, something needs to change, or are they resistant?
I'd say it's a little bit of both. We have, of course, change is difficult for anybody, and we've got a group of people, and not particularly electeds, but people who have been activists and been engaged in the party for decades, for their whole lives, and that have done a lot of great work to get us where we are. And I never want to discredit the energy and the work that folks have done in terms of the Democratic Party. But obviously, we are in a point where we have to change the way that we operate and the way that we do things. And that, I think, is something that happens naturally regardless. Folks like Senator McCaskill, she's been hugely helpful, to be very honest with you. I'm very much engaged in candidate recruitment and getting folks to run throughout the entire state, because it's been a struggle of ours. And she has been every step of the way helpful, calling candidates all the way down to House members and even county folks that we're trying to get to run at the local level. She's very receptive. And our new party chair, his name is Stephen Weber, for the state. He is a millennial as well, a former House member, ran for the state Senate and lost, and now he's the chair of the party. And having him at the helm is very helpful too. So, I mean, I'm not going to say that everybody's on board with this kind of new way of doing it. We are having to talk through it with people. But I do think change is difficult for folks who've been doing this for, their whole lives. But I really don't think that at this point where we are in February, it's not a battle of old versus new anymore. And I'm very hopeful and excited for the direction that we're going here in Missouri.
Final question, and thanks so much for your time. If there was anything that you could impart to people who wanted to start engaging at the grassroots for, real left and progressive politics, what would be the sort of one thing, one issue or one piece of advice that you think would be just most effective across the board?
If I narrow it down to one thing, it would be to be authentic.
if somebody was coming to you and saying, I'm thinking about running for office, I'm want to do something similar to you, where I'm not coming like with a traditional support base. I don't necessarily have an establishment behind me, but I really want to do it. And what are some things that I should keep in mind, or what would be how to get started and make it actually happen?
Yeah. Well, really, to get started, you could just, if you're in Missouri, call me. Really, my number one advice is to be authentic to who you are. We're seeing, particularly with our governor, when we're not putting it out there, it is a problem later. But you need to be authentic so that your voters, when you get there, and provided you win and you're voting one way, they know why. But it's also important to listen to your district and listen to the needs of people. Missouri is a very interesting place, and we have very liberal strongholds and then very conservative areas. And I do think that you can run progressively even in these very conservative areas if you're open and honest and willing to find compromise. Compromise isn't a bad word. It's really just about finding the things that we can work on. But then, there are some things that, as I know myself as a progressive, I won't ever waver on. Right. And as long as your constituents know that, then they're going to respect it, whether or not they agree with you. And that respect goes a very long way on folks actually turning out and voting for you.
Crystal Quade, she is a Democrat representing the 132nd District in the Missouri House of Representatives. Thanks so much for your time, Crystal.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Take care. All right, everybody. We've got a couple of pieces of housekeeping to go through here. Should we start? I guess we could start negative and then go to positive. Yeah. Is that what you're thinking?
That's what I always like to do.
Yep. So there was a big business opportunity for people, particularly in the Bush era of Republicans, and also post-autopsy after Romney lost, where there was a consensus among establishment Republicans. The money guys were interested in immigration reform because they're interested in new and various forms to exploit labor and on the lower end and blue collar scale, and also to potentially, make sure that they can keep wages down for engineers and programmers in Silicon Valley, as an example. And also there was a perception that, like, hey, we have to be the party of white identity politics, but we also should not appear so overtly bigoted as to be off-putting to potentially a handful of people of color that might vote for us, and then also suburban white people that, just feel a little icky. So there were people like Ana Navarro, who were Republican consultants, and she did some Spanish. I think she helped campaigns and candidates think about Hispanic demo, and she was a pundit.
Think about it.
Definitely something.
Definitely think about that demo.
Definitely. There's a lot to be gained from thinking about the Hispanic demo. And she, like so many others, was, she was so appalled by Donald Trump. And look, Donald Trump is different. Donald Trump, through all of his overt bigotry, has obviously given license to the worst people in this country and injected a lot of energy into bigotry and racism and xenophobia. But this is also somebody who is happy to support, self-deport MIT and all this other bullshit. Now, I believe, and you might have to look this up, I believe Ana Navarro's father was a Contra or involved with the Contras. So she basically comes from that tradition. She comes from the Ronald Reagan worshiping, don't be overtly racist, but definitely support death squads in Central America. Definitely give sanctimonious speeches about Russia, and definitely pretend that you're not racist. So she put out this tweet today. Today's Ronald Reagan's birthday. I'd like to add parenthetically that today is also Bob Marley's birthday, and that is one I would prefer to focus on. Today's Ronald Reagan's birthday. Reagan confronted Russian strongmen, spoke of inclusion. I'd like to really emphasize the spoke of inclusion here. There was a massive upsurge in Klan activity during Ronald Reagan's presidency, and Ronald Reagan announced his candidacy in a town where civil rights workers were murdered, and the whole time he was there, he was talking about states' rights. I think we know what the fuck
you do the math.
There's a logical. What impression was that? What was it? That was like Beta Cuck Reagan. It's like Reagan who got castrated.
I felt like Brain from Pinky and the Brain.
You do the math, Anna. But of course, he would go to before the National Press Club and other places and be like, now being bad to black people is a very bad thing. Now I have to get back to the White House and veto sanctions against apartheid South Africa, which is what Ronald Reagan did. He literally vetoed sanctions. He had a veto override in the late 80s because so many people in Congress, including Republicans, voted to actually implement sanctions against apartheid South Africa. That's where Ronald Reagan was at. He worked across the aisle with Tip O'Neill, yep, absolutely, to do things like create the drug war and throw a massive amount of people in prison. He signed the last major immigration law granting a path to citizenship, that's true. Won the Electoral College and Republican and a popular vote, yep, that's just a fact. Had great hair. I mean, yes, I get she's taking a Trump shot, and that's true relative to Trump. Although it was very he had hair that did look like he co-starred in movies with monkeys in the 50s.
That's there
before being a corporate spokesperson.
That's there as a funny aside to make the rest of things look substantial.
Right, exactly. Was a Republican, sigh. Ana Navarro, who went from doing PR gimmicks to make Republicans look like they weren't bigots, and is now still doing it on behalf of Ronald Reagan on Twitter, and is now a lead Mick resistance person. I also one time was in a car service going, I think, Al Jazeera or some network, and the car guy said she was not nice. So I'm just going to add that baseless rumor mongering as well to Ana Navarro. And whoever the equivalent of Ana Navarro is today in 20 years will be doing a tweet about how Donald Trump talked about love all the time and said he loved Mexicans before that president then is officially inaugurating gas chambers to deal with the border crisis of 20 years from now. So which is why today, to hopefully prevent that future, we sentence Ana Navarro to the pyramid. Or hopefully she will stay. Or maybe she could do hits from CNN from there. All right, everybody. Here's what we're going to do. Let's put on... Did you get that Garnet Silk track?
I got an El Chapo remix.
Oh, I didn't even know about El Chapo remix. Wait, Skrillex? We got to play... we got to play out the show later before we go to the postgame with Bob Marley, because it is Bob Marley's birthday.
Okay.
We'll put on the Chapo Skrillex thing. Felix Biederman is here. He's just entered the building. He's representing Chicago. And he's going to come take a seat. So what is it? The Skrillex remix?
I guess it must have been Slavic that put the game and Skrillex, El Chapo.
All right, I buy it. Let's put it on. And we'll be back in a minute.
El Chapo, I am the God. El Chapo, I am the God. El Chapo, I am the God. You know I get the kilos, 50%. If you are not bilingual, get the fuck up out of town for me when your ass can't underground. Fuck up out of town for me when your ass can't underground. Shot. 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 Niggas gotta pull up, let him pick up. I am the God. El Chapo, I am the God. You know I get the kilos, 50%. If you are not bilingual, get the fuck up out of town for me when your ass can't underground. Fuck up out of town for me when your ass can't underground. Shot. 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 Niggas gotta pull up, let him pick up. Shot. 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 Niggas gotta pull up, let him pick up. Shot. 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 Shot.
All right. Well, welcome back, Michael Brooks Show. Felix Biederman, Chapo Trap House. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. I forgot that I was going to be on camera. I would have worn a more slimming garment and
Well,
not worn a hat.
What's a slimming garment that you could wear?
Well, you see, American clothing companies. I'm wearing a something manufactured in America now. They make
North
things-
Face is made in America?
I don't know. I actually don't know. I'm just
yeah.
saying that. I'm saying that for if people say I look fat when they watch this.
Dude,
but
you
they,
want-
they make it for people with like narrow shoulders and big guts. And I'm not in 2015 shape when I moved here. I've gotten a lot of delivery in that time, but I still have a relatively flat stomach, a great shoulder to waist ratio.
Right.
But it's a little cold out. But
That's why I wanted to book you. I was like, that dude has great shoulder to waist ratio. We can get him on the show.
That's how I got into media.
I can't have another You know what? That's actually, if you go to like, you know what I love about media is that you can go to like media centered parties. And I think if you come with just any like sort of like basic physical coordination, you're already like a global athletic standout. Like you're just like, I was able to catch a ball when I was growing up, apparently.
Yeah. I was in so much better shape when I moved here before I started breathing the poison air. And whenever I would go to like a media thing, I felt like Jesse Owens in Berlin. Even with my bad posture and not elite body fat, you know.
Where were you before?
I was in Minnesota.
Oh, that does have clean fucking air. Do you want, if you want to slim yourself down, we could give you the Wyatt Koch money bag T-shirt if you want to try that on. That's
going to highlight all the bad parts. All the things that have gotten fatter since 2015.
I don't know. We'll see. Do you want to try it?
Let me see this.
Let's see. This is original Coke wear, bro. See? I like, and I like, by the way, he's keeping, for those of you who are listening.
It's really tight around the deltoids, by the way.
Yeah, I think that's how he designed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's probably into deltoids.
I don't have a lot of mobility in this. If I had to enter a combat
Wait, just keep it one more second. What I like about this is I like that you're doing it very 90s style because you've kept the fleece on. So you've got the sleeves coming out of the tee.
That's called tactical party wear. To enter a tactical situation, but it's really tight. It's really tight around like the back and shoulders,
right?
Because every man in America looks like Wyatt Koch. They have the Wyatt Koch body type.
He said, "Dad, Wyatt, every man in America has a body type like you. Make them T-shirts."
I mean, really though. Like I was in the Atlanta airport last year or the year before that, and I guess it varies place to place. Like in New York, most people are like kind of waifish.
Yeah,
but in Atlanta,
no, in Atlanta they have pounds.
Yeah, I could be a fitness model in Atlanta like now,
right?
But when
this is a new segment we're inaugurating. Actually, Felix is going to become a regular. It's fat shaming on TM. It's fat shaming for socialists.
I'm not shaming it. They're happy. I mean, look, when I lived in Minnesota, I felt like an Untermensch because every person is like 6'5" and 4% body fat. So it's just the inverse of that for me.
Let's play this clip. This is you have this write up from me, right?
This is a KDKA in Pittsburgh.
KDKA in Pittsburgh. And do you know about this new Zuckerberg move to do we have the drop ready on Zuck that he's going to incentivize. He's basically the Facebook algorithm now is going to be to push local news. Have you heard about that?
No, there's got to be something nefarious behind that.
I mean, without a doubt. But he also released
to help with connectivity.
To help with connectivity. So he said, but he released some kind of like garbage, like, you know, I want more people to think about their local communities.
And people say they want to hear more local news about their local communities.
Right. Like he did like the classic like Silicon Valley. Of course it's going to be for something evil. And of course it was some algorithm that made sense. But they insist on putting out some type of like garbage social justification, right? And I was just thinking of that because we have this clip here, and this will be the shout out basically of this new, what is his position? He's a district
magistrate.
He's a magistrate. He's a district justice who just got elected in Pittsburgh. His name is Mik Pappas, and he basically he actually ran on, like, you know, basically not just being a stamp for landlords and cops and prosecutors. And what I love when you get a segment like this, because the whole frame of this segment is like basically like, oh my God, all these like black people are not going to be, you know, like cops can't just shoot people anymore and people can't be evicted from our homes. We're going to go back to like Death Wish or something. And it's so reactionary, but for people like us, we're like, this basically is just a ringing endorsement of the fact that this guy's actually keeping his campaign promises. So let's check it out.
Usually when someone is charged with a serious crime, they have to put up some cash or something else that is of value to be able to be released from jail and to make sure that they'll be staying out of trouble and then showing up for court.
But one local judge has a different idea, and it's upsetting a lot of people who say that he's giving breaks that aren't deserved. Here's KDKA investigator Andy Sheehan.
As District Justice, I will work to end mass incarceration, to disrupt the school-to-prison pipeline, and to prevent evictions.
You know what I like? Pause it. I do, like, I'm into that, but I like how he literally talks like he's doing some type of, like, voiceover ad for, like, a medical, like, waste company or something. Like, he's like, this is how you dispose properly of a blood sample after it's been used.
Yeah, he could do ASMR. I noticed Tupac Changes is in the background of that. Pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. He's very clear about his demo. All right.
Socialists of America, Mik Pappas ran for district justice as, quote, a progressive peacemaker, aiming to make the court system fairer
like the Sam
for
Adams
minorities
logo.
and the poor.
Right.
Yeah. Can you talk to me?
Yeah, sure. It depends on what about.
But after a stunning
He's
victory,
like approaching
Pappas
him like
has
he's a
become lightning rod,
pedophile.
accused of legislating his political philosophy from the bench.
Your critics would say you're an advocacy judge and that your actions are making the community less safe.
I would respectfully disagree. I don't know of any instance where that's the case.
In agreeing to sit down with me, Pappas said he couldn't talk about specific cases. But in the past 3 weeks, his rulings have made defendants happy while angering landlords, prosecutors, and police.
Like the three worst people in society, right? Like he's angering like landlords, prosecutors, and police. I mean, who? I guess CEOs. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's up there. I mean, I don't know who watches this local news program.
Zuckerberg.
It's Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg. But just any. I mean, I guess there are tens of millions of these people who are like, oh, all three of those things are great.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. I mean, Sinclair and old scared people who want voices talking at them in the middle of the day.
Well, it's interesting, like the peg to the local news thing, because if you want to see the most horrifying shit you've ever seen in your life, go to a Facebook page for a local news agency and just read any story about any crime. Yeah, like robbery, like not even armed robbery, like someone just stole someone from a house that no one was in, and it's 30 guys who just look like thumbs with mustaches and like suburban women with those like benzodiazepine eyes who are like, they should bury him up to his neck in sand and just shove a broadsword through it. And it's like there are enough people in America who want to live in the Islamic State.
Yes, they absolutely do. Or really, yes, they want. Maybe Iran would be too soft for them under Rouhani. They're like, that guy's like lightning drug sentences. What the fuck is that about? Is there any more of this? Yeah, all right, we'll watch a little bit more of this because I do love. But I just love that like the whole setup of this is literally reminding me of like To Catch a Predator, and. Except it's like, oh, you're not disenfranchising people because they aren't wealthy.
While angering landlords, prosecutors, and police, refusing to grant evictions, balking at signing arrest and search warrants, and steadfastly refusing to set cash bail for crime suspects. He doesn't believe in it and even tweeted this, quote, update, in the past 2 weeks, I've set bail in over a dozen cases. Not once have I imposed cash bail. Not once has this resulted in chaos, collision, or calamity. Hashtag end cash bail.
Some people say, oh, you know, he's letting people go. This is because his courtroom has become a revolving door.
No, that's not accurate.
Pappas believes cash bail unfairly penalizes the poor because they can't post it while rich people can.
Pause it. Isn't that literally like just a true statement? I mean, like, even if you're a reactionary asshole, he's saying it like he's speculating. Like, apparently he thinks that cash bail isn't fair to poor people. That is a 2 + 2 = 4 shit.
Why else would he do it? Well, some people speculate that he's the Joker and he wants to unleash a crime wave on Pittsburgh. He wants to help Tekashi 6ix9ine with his GED so he can keep rapping.
I like it. This guy, he would be funny. It's like, I mean, what is it going to take to get you in the game?
Require someone who's at that point innocent to give the one thing we know they don't have, which is money. as a condition of their release pending the outcome.
Yeah. But what about the fucking black kids?
To the defendant.
Yeah.
And he takes a similar stance on refusing to sign some arrest and search warrants, even though police privately grouse he's hindering their investigation. Pappas counters that he's not a rubber stamp, but a bulwark in protecting the rights of suspects.
Being that bulwark is the most essential function of a magistrate.
Look at his hands.
Warrants. And you're reviewing warrants. You're not just approving them. That's not the role. You review them to determine if probable cause is met.
So basically, this guy is fucking awesome and is getting a shout out. And I love literally every single positive attribute that he has is being reported like a plot. I mean, I think that's the thing that people don't even like. We take so for granted that criminal justice policies is basically just like essentially like a self-licking ice cream cone for like private security companies and police departments, and that there's an unending well of like white suburban fear that even, and then we go back to like 2014 and there started to be this like cliche where even people would say like, oh, you know, like Rand Paul has some interesting ideas on prison reform and all this shit. And then it actually happens and it's still covered in the local news as if like this guy's like a M13 or whatever the fuck.
Well, it's kind of
he's like an M13
MS13
agent.
Microsoft 13.
I'm
It's
proud
the
of
most
myself.
Controversial Windows product.
That's a very I'm still proud of myself that I can't remember the name of that gang. Because they've worked so hard to make like that the new it thing, and I just can't remember it.
I remember every publication I've ever written for. And people complain, but they pay net 15. It's like good for me at the time. No, but like that's the inverse of the Congress thing, right?
Right.
Like Congress has this every year. It's like historically low approval ratings, but if you look at like actual districts, people actually like,
they like
their
congresspeople.
congressmen, so
Right.
it doesn't really matter unless it's a wave year or something. The inverse is true of this, where like in broad strokes, like people just like the words criminal justice reform. And this obviously doesn't apply to everyone. I think there probably could be a plurality of people who want a total overhaul of it. But I think for a lot of like cloistered white people, like maybe like the 30% who will be with Trump no matter what he does.
Right.
Like the
people that like he could literally go and fuck their wives in their apartments, and they're just like, that's the kind of non-PC leadership.
If Trump like was in a Timmy Thick video, they'd be like, what? But
it's me and what's that guy, Logan Paul? We're in a park in Japan. People are just killing themselves here. It's so weird.
They're killing themselves because we're bringing all the jobs that went to Japan back to America. But
I mean, the Japanese, they're just killing themselves all over the place. I told you they kill themselves, folks.
Well, but there's like a weird thing at play because within that subset of white people, like broadly, they like the cops.
Right.
They hate but most people who've had an interaction with police, even white people, just come away with it with a very bad feeling, because usually you run into somebody with like an authoritarian personality type who just likes to tell you what to do and likes the idea that they have power over you.
Right.
And no one likes that really. But in their political activity, they care about like the subjugation of black people and keeping things in line.
Right.
So they'll accept.
So I'm absolutely willing to accept a little bit of personal inconvenience if it will subjugate black people. Obviously,
but when they hear the words like criminal justice reform, they probably mean like, oh, that means I won't like get pulled over for speeding, even though that's like not really what that means. But like in practice, it goes against the main reason they support cops, which is maintaining racial order.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly right. I think that you can't. There are some issues. Like it's hard because we have like these pseudo woke assholes who use like fake knockoff intersectionality to distract us from capitalism and distract us from dealing with structural issues. But then at the same time, there absolutely are certain things that in order to tackle, you have to get through things like racism, right? Like in criminal justice reform. Even though that being said, I mean, obviously criminal justice reform is also very much a class issue too.
Oh yeah,
I mean it's absolutely both, right? And so it's also gets. I think on one hand it's like there's this suburban bloc that's freaked out and totally racially motivated, and they'll continue to support all sorts of regressive prison shit. And they're a powerful voting bloc for both parties. And then on the other hand, in our circles, I think that it's not understood broadly enough as like, you know, some of the highest rates of like police killings, as an example, are in dominant, like incredibly undiverse states. And part of it is like people like in New Mexico is like, yeah, well, we can also get away with fucking murdering poor white people. It's sort of like get away with doing shit to people that don't have power.
Right,
Period.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, yeah, both those can be visible. You can have like a visible campaign about like police murder, like police shootings of black men. You can have it about like the way that police like treat black women they arrest and how they often die in incarceration.
Right.
You know, the police murder of like poor white people, like that video from Dallas, I think it was.
Oh, was it the one was it the one in Arizona?
The guy who's begging.
Yeah, it was in Arizona.
Oh, Arizona, right?
That's
right.
Yeah,
and they're like a common thread links them all, but you can have all of those be visible. It doesn't have to be like a.
It's not a competition
thing. Yeah,
right.
It definitely benefits police for there to be a divided opposition to them,
right?
Where, you know, people are jockeying for which one is worse. But, you know, there is always, I don't think people have yet processed that there can be political campaigns that are about one thing, right? Like there can be
in terms of like everybody needs their name check. Like instead of like at the end of a Nas track, he says like, God bless New York, one love. But if people are like, oh, you didn't mention Staten Island, so you hate us.
Yeah, kind of. I mean,
is that kind of what you're
do you know Ricky Rawls on Twitter?
I have him on the show a lot, and
Yeah,
I've been
yeah.
on channel. He's a really smart dude.
Yeah.
Trevor.
Trevor.
Yeah.
He said something where he was just like, why can't Black Lives Matter just be about like cops killing black people? That's what it was supposed to be about. And it's like, well, there is something to the idea that social change campaigns should mainly be about the thing they're about,
right? Versus the need to run interference on everything else. Like were you saying, like, just to make it concrete, like, so if somebody says to Black Lives Matter, okay, well, you're fighting for justice, broadly speaking. So like, what's your official position on I don't know, like Tibet? Right. Like, is that kind of?
I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. Like 2014, which was like a really stupid year in like being woke, was
2014 was peak stupid woke. I think like if you went through 2014 without trying to go post and pre woke, you're a fucking moron.
But I saw people who were like, why should anyone give a shit about Palestinians if they didn't protest for Sandra Bland? And it's like, what the fuck? And it's like, obviously, it's the dumbest shit you've ever seen.
That's a lot of balls. That's a lot of balls.
And I think, like, there's absolutely something to people, like, realizing that struggles are intertwined. Like, if you go to Ireland, you see these murals of, like, you know, Palestine.
African National Congress.
Exactly.
Yep.
But, like, demanding that, like, Hamas, like, it's a weird. I think that type of thing is creeping back up, and it will always like reach a boiling point and bubble back down because it's hard to maintain because it's so punitive and Calvinist and nuts. But
yeah, the left is too Christian sometimes, but I think that, or too Calvinist. But I think that that's true. But what's really frustrating is we have those two different models, right? Because it's one thing to say, you know, T's point, like let something be what it's about.
Right.
It's another thing to actually say, there is a tradition, and I do a lot of stuff on this show, and I'm pretty fascinated by South Africa, and I've you know, interviewed Ronnie Kasrils and stuff like that, and it's been pretty amazing. Like those movements, they did actually think about how they overlapped and connected with other, but they didn't do it because they were like guilted into it because of people on social media. They did it because they had an analysis of the world, and applied their ethics globally, which is like what we should aspire to. But that doesn't come through like, well, I'm not gonna work for you,
right? Exactly.
No, it's a totally different thing.
People make those connections naturally,
right?
The time. Like,
exactly.
Whenever I've like last time I did anything resembling journalism, which I'm not going to do again because it's too hard.
Yeah,
and boring.
it's really difficult.
But it was about Saudi Arabia. It was like about like gay kids and like migrant kids in Saudi Arabia, like people who live under the fear of detainment, and execution. It's like if I talked to a lot of them, and when I would like look at their timelines, they would be justified to like only talk about how shitty it is for them.
But were they concerned about a lot more? I bet
everything. They were concerned about everything, and I think people naturally make those connections, but also for like an actual like those connections will come naturally for people doing.
They don't have to be lectured onto.
Right.
People.
You can't really browbeat something into being about something else. Those things will become intertwined over time, probably.
I think that's a problem though with parts of the left now too, though, is that there's too much like, I was saying on this show that I was on the other day, I was like, I actually basically like most people. Like, I think people like, I mean, I've got critiques of all sorts of shit, and it doesn't mean that we have to like not have our criticisms, but I think that the left has spent way too much time being like, like, oh no, I wear all black, and that's so fatally problematic, and just actually forgetting that there's a lot of just like people make connections. Like a lot of people are actually fairly smart. A lot of people they're pretty good. And I don't even see how you have like an actual real left commitment if you don't have some real kind of optimism about people on some level. Because if you think people are basically pretty shitty and you're part of like an elite, you should be on the right. Because that's like actually the governance model, right? Like you're part of some fucking Nietzschean project and other people are fucking mediocrities that you can walk all over. Like that's the Kermit the Frog guy. That's like what he's selling right now, the Jordan Peterson guy, right? Like he's doing that for a mass audience. Like you need to actualize yourself, But if we're thinking about mass movements and mass people, you got to have some trust in them.
Right. I mean, I think it's like, I don't know. I don't think whatever pessimism of like people online is super important to the left, because like these things, it's like you see 100 people on Twitter say or do something and you extrapolate it to a broader thing which just sort of isn't there so much in real life. And I think with absolutely anything, you'll get people who have put in like more hours than other people and will cling to what this thing was when they got into it, which was smaller and it was higher barrier to entry. But that happens with literally everything. Yeah.
Right. But it happens with literally everything, but like at the same time, I think we have to at least be reminding people like, higher barrier to entry, subculture. It's like, look, like I'm involved, like, I don't know. I go to fucking dance hall and soca parties. I like certain kinds of sneakers. Like that's cool. And other people are into gaming. Other people are into sports. Like that's awesome. But ultimately, like politics it shouldn't be a fucking social club and an elite isolated thing. It should be a large mass thing that we do so we can actually win and get everybody health care.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I think the problem with that though is the problem that people have with it is that there is this, we sort of live by the curse of the thing that we've all tried to critique, which is the conflation of media with political action. Right. And people will take like, media properties or media entities and like will think that it's indicative of broader left. It's nothing can just be something you enjoy. Right. It's supposed to be indicative of this broader movement. Everything said on X show or Y publication represents a type of left, and it is a uniquely American thing. I don't know if it's uniquely American. I think it's sort of endemic to the West, but it's something Adam Curtis talks about. When people gave up the idea of political power in the 80s, they cling to cultural power. Right. And so we assign this level of meaning to cultural products.
Which is fundamentally capitalist thinking. And that to me, as far as I'm concerned, and that also reminds us that like one of the reasons it's so hard for us is we're playing on somebody else's playing field.
Right.
I mean, that's just the reality.
It's hard to deprogram yourself though.
Yeah.
Like I don't like the average person who like gets mad at it, like they don't know. It takes, not everyone's going to watch, hypernormalization or agree with it, or say it's a hard thing to get out of your head.
Right.
And who knows if I'm even right? This is just my opinion on it. But
you're right because you overlap with what I'm saying.
That's true.
And I'm definitely right.
This is your show,
Yes,
and
this
you
is
have mic stands, which we don't have on our show.
Yeah, exactly. Fucking get some goddamn professionalism. Speaking of deprogramming,
yes,
we're gonna play a little game, and I don't know if there should be. We have a graphic that goes along with this game. Gulag or Reeducation.
All right.
This is a new inaugural Michael Brooks Show game. Thank you, Felix, for being the first guest to play it with me. And, of course...
Like every competition I've ever tried, I'll be amazing at it the first time I try it. The only reason I didn't go pro in any sport is I didn't want to.
Right, exactly. Look, but this isn't even... I mean, this is honestly like the way I like to think of this is if the four of us are like... We're in Cuba. It's in the early 60s. And we just have a list of names, and we're just deciding. Like, is there a road back for you to be like a peasant worker? Or do you need to be sent away permanently just to, I guess, be a peasant worker? But, so we're just, we're spitballing here. And I think this will go to, our values, what offends us most, what we're most forgiving of. And, of course, Matt and David are going to get in on this, too. And then we're going to do some of this, actually, in the post game, so we'll get your thoughts as well. And what we're going to do is we have 4 categories, and then we're going to actually play them through the whole show. And because ultimately, like good cadres, we pretty much want everybody to be sent to the gulag. So essentially, one person will be left standing for Reeducation. Our first. I
didn't know how this worked.
Yeah,
that seems weird. But
no, it's like
cool.
it's like NCAA. It's like NCAA tournament. It's like real high stakes. Just because if Meghan McCain gets past Meghan McArdle, does that mean she's permanently not going to a gulag? I don't feel comfortable living in that world. This music might be a little bit too sad.
It's Hunger Games. Sorry, I just came up with that.
It's Hunger Games.
I
never saw Hunger Games.
I actually never did either.
Yeah,
it was like,
Thank
why
God.
did you fucking change Battle Royale, one of my favorite movies?
Right, the Japanese movie.
Yes,
that is
such a good
dude,
movie.
That is such a good movie, and there are, those moments when cultures really do conform to stereotypes of themselves. And the whole time I was watching this, like, Jesus fuck, like Japan is being so fucking Japan right now.
I like it when people are like, people
They're
are
just being themselves. Yeah,
doing me.
Just doing me. It's like negotiating in Jerusalem. You're just like, oh, you asshole.
No,
my friend, no.
You follow Eminem Obama at all?
No.
My friend Michael.
Tell me. Tell me
great.
about Eminem Obama. I like this.
He's just a really funny guy. His brother is on episode 1, which is one of my favorite podcasts. But he like finds like interesting guys on Facebook. He finds a lot of like Klan guys and Nazi guys. But for a while,
guys, yeah.
he was finding guys with bios that just said I'm doing me. And for some reason, that is just really fun. I've been thinking about that for like months, and that's what Battle Royale is. It's Japan saying I'm doing me.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it is an awesome movie.
You had a music
Did you have
request?
a music request?
Oh, Lil Peep, Ben Struck 2.
Oh, okay, I buy it.
Sort of like a dark, foreboding beat for this, but it's still like a celebration a little bit. But yeah.
I still think that I still want some type of like Bad Boys for Life type track for this, actually. I want something more upbeat. All right, let's start. We're going to do our first round with this music. I buy it. What the hell was that?
Oh, there's a lot of vocals in it.
Oh, there's a lot of vocals.
Yeah,
All right, then it has
I
to
didn't
be.
account for that.
Oh yeah, we need bedded music.
Okay, bed
All right.
music. Okay.
Bed music. You know,
Okay.
would you put in the club for bed
Okay,
music?
yeah.
I just like. Do you see
All
the
right,
direction
yeah,
I'm trying to go in?
Scott Storch is coming back, so that type of beat is coming
Hell
back.
yeah. Not a moment too soon. I've missed that.
People are coming back in 2018, or Scott Storch and Tyga.
Dude, we're going to do a fucking trend watching segment with you too. I agree with that completely. You know what was so brilliant about this song too? Was that it was a solid club track and it was good, fun, whatever. But that It's Your Birthday thing stuck in your head like a brain worm. And that is the difference between was around for a couple of weeks in 2006 or wherever it was when this came out to like 2018 when you're still at a party and it still gets the like girl like, ah! reaction.
Yeah.
It's the it's your birthday thing.
Well, these were like made in a lab. Like this was just,
Literally.
yeah.
They were literally. Do you remember it might even be the video for this where
They have him run on a treadmill with sensors.
Yes,
Like, why would you need to like have good cardio to rap?
No, because Eminem and Dre need to recruit him, so they need to see if he could like properly steal someone else's girl at a club, what his cardio is like. Like they needed to do that.
That's my favorite type of rap video where it's like highly like it's every DJ Khaled video from like 2008 till like pretty much now is like the government is like they have the Delta Force and they're like, we can't let T.I., Birdman, Lil Wayne, we can't let them rap together. It'll be too good of a song. We have to intercept them.
And they all like what was the show that Mr. T was on in the 80s? The
A-Team, yeah.
Just like the A-Team, in all those videos, the entire government national security apparatus is setting out to break them apart. And instead of hiding in Yemen, they're all like in Lamborghinis, like rapping together, but still the government somehow cannot figure them out. Just like the A-Team was all in LA. Like they were like, these guys escaped and the CIA needs to find them. Where are they hanging?
CIA too long to get to Echo Park.
Yeah, they're in Echo Park, like helping a girl like find her homework assignment. But the whole national security, I wish the national security state was like that. We'd have a lot less dead Yemeni and Pakistanis from drones if these guys were, or maybe they do work like that, and that's why we have so many dead people. They're missing everybody, right? Exactly. All right, so this is perfect. First group of contestants, and I'll put, definitely keep the beat up. But let me see, is my board up? First group of contestants. Meghan McCain versus Meghan McArdle. Gulag or reeducation camp? Felix Biederman, your vote and explanation first, and then we'll go to Grisham, Lek, and myself.
Starting me out with a tough one.
Yeah, well, start hard, man. They're all hard.
I don't know. This is really tough. I mean, okay, so you got McArdle.
Right.
McArdle is like, she's a very cynical person.
Very cynical.
Like, to the point, well, she has, her public image is like, oh, I just think you should be nice to people. By the way, has anyone figured out if poor people don't like dying from starvation?
Right.
And
what you really need is a longitudinal study where two people of comparable ages are put in different environments, and one starves to death and the other one has a nice family life. Yeah. And if we can measure clinically that the one that starves to death is less happy, then we'll know.
But it's like to the point that I don't even have the hate in my heart. We've just done so many McArdle segments on our show that I don't even really have the hate in my heart that like Matt and Will has, because Will has been reading her columns for 12 years to get angry.
Will is like, it's like I mentioned this with Nathan Robinson, who does those deep dives into like Charles Murray and shit.
Yeah.
There's a Tibetan meditation practice called Tonglen where you breathe in like the pollution of the world, and it's supposed to like, you literally are visualizing inhaling like black smoke, and then you breathe, and then you supposedly purify it inside yourself, and you breathe out like light and compassion. And like Will and Robinson and all of these people that read this shit are like doing that. They're like taking in pollution and garbage and then somehow churning out something better. But I don't want to breathe all that shit in.
No, I don't either. I'm just breathing in crap and I'm blowing it out at this point of me reading McArdle. But even though her dullness,
maybe a little bad boy beat now.
All right.
Oh yeah, I buy it. Yeah. Okay, we're on.
But
track.
her dullness has kind of worked me to the point where I don't even like get excited to do like a McArdle segment anymore. But using that dispassion, I can definitively say I think she may be worse than Meghan McCain, because Meghan McCain just seems like a sort of fucking dunce.
Yes.
And like probably sucks as a person. I would assume.
I think that's a very safe assumption that she's a terrible human being.
But she's been at it a shorter time. And she like her media, like her presence is like, let's make the Republican Party cool. Deficits are lame. And it's not quite as comprehensively evil as McArdle's, so I would have to say McArdle to the wall. Send her to the gulag.
Gulag.
Wait, so who passes for re-education then?
So that means that Meghan McCain is getting re-education camp out of this round. I mean, it was a tight contest. Well, that's what Felix says. We still have votes on this. Grisham, and I think you're right, though. I do want to say, in fairness to Felix's decision making, there hasn't been a View segment where Meghan McCain has been like, "Are we really even sure that poor people want sprinkler systems so they don't burn to death?" That's true. I mean, there are degrees of evil output. Grisham, Meghan McCain, Meghan McArdle, you are a Marxist theoretician. You're a young academic. You're from Texas. You wear a leather jacket. And you've been working on the show for a little while. All right, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, to be completely honest, I feel like I have way more beef with McArdle than I do with McCain.
Right.
I mean,
it's a natural first instinct.
McCain is absolutely exhausting to listen to. I feel like she doesn't really... I mean, I think at the end of the day that... McCain definitely needs to go to a re-education camp. She definitely doesn't understand what feminism is. McArdle is somebody who I don't think that there's any chance that she can be saved. I mean, this is somebody who takes Coke money, writes for magazines that nobody buys, nobody reads, and are just funded by billionaire donors.
Right.
She claims to be a former leftist, which is one of those bullshit things that right-wingers say. And I mean, these tweets the other day were incredible, right? She's like, I was struggling so much living in my parents' bedroom,
right?
My wealthy parents, and I had the privilege of going to school, but I couldn't pay for my medical bills. Oh my God!
Post-game teaser.
We are doing.
She's done.
She's okay. Gulag. Pure the physical labor. I mean, it's going to be so brutal to have her in a gulag because she obviously, speaking of media lack of hand-eye coordination, I can only imagine with her. Matt Lex.
So I'm coming at this from a bit of a different direction. I think you don't want, just from a political standpoint, you don't want another POW McCain.
Right.
So you re-educate her, and you and then you get like the sort of bump for that, like, oh, look at the magnanimous, and nobody really care if McArdle gets gulagged.
All right, so come to me. I mean, already McArdle has actually been sentenced. My only pushback, I do think I don't do slate contrarianism, so I'll just say up front, McArdle's got to go. Okay, I think that's a clear choice there. The problem with McCain, though, is that she's on The View. She's got a real platform. So McArdle, there's a handful of weird shut-ins that like her, and then she provides content for us to make fun of, and that's basically what she does.
Yeah.
Whereas Meghan McCain is like this horrible trust fund baby who just gets to endlessly... Meghan McCain exemplifies perfectly all of the problems with capitalism and intergenerational wealth.
I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah.
I forgot she was on The View, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
She may be doing more harm. I don't know what she's saying on the show, though.
Well, I mean, she's saying what you said. Deficits are stupid and, blah, blah, blah. I mean, she's just saying her crap. Who knows?
She could be doing a greater net harm because she's definitely reaching more people than McArdle.
Well, let me just say this. I'm voting for McCain. Are you changing your vote?
You may have convinced me.
I think I've convinced you, and that means that David Slavic is going to need to text me to tie-break vote Meghan McArdle or Meghan McCain. But now we got to get on to the next category. This is another one that I feel like is tough, but because of our biases, this was going to be too easy for us. But we still got to do it. David Brooks or Ezra Klein. We'll start again with our guest, Felix Biederman.
This is one of the easiest choices I've ever made.
Right.
David Brooks is he's just a pathetic man. He hasn't profited immensely off of the global order that he puts forth. He has a brownstone and a 23-year-old wife and all this shit. And probably
he has a 23-year-old wife.
Around that age, he married his research assistant.
I did know that, his research assistant on the book Character or Virtue that he was fucking while he was married.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But
right.
He mainly just seems adrift. If you read his columns, he seems depressed.
Yes.
And not even about Trump necessarily. He just seems man, you ever see that movie The Descendants with George Clooney?
Yes. Yes.
Or The Weatherman with Nicholas, that genre of movie about the listless,
morose, middle-aged man.
Yeah.
Right.
That's where he's at. And
everything's easy, but nothing's good.
Yeah, I think that. So I think that he's malleable. You shift him into something. You can make his beliefs less stupid or just scare him. But Ezra Klein is just a fucking worm. He will do whatever it takes to survive. If, we turned into the Fallout world tomorrow, it was just a post-nuclear hellscape, he would find a way to sell graphs to gangs of 7-foot-tall cockroaches. He just fucking repulses me to my core. So Ezra is going to the gulag.
Ezra's going to the gulag. Matt, check your text when you have a chance. David Grisham, Ezra Klein, or David Brooks. Felix Biederman, with the contempt of a young leftist against the nerd technocracy fascism of Ezra Klein, combined with and actually I would say read it as a creeping empathy for David Brooks' apparent utter depression.
I don't know if it's empathy.
Yeah.
I guess it is. I
heard it as empathy, my friend.
I'm betraying my bourgeois origins.
You are definitely. You're just like, you know what? There's a sad middle-aged guy who's eating cheese and did you know what I think about David Brooks is that he's accomplished all of his goals and is clearly super unhappy. So when
you're the king, it's lonely on top.
Right.
David Brooks.
Exactly. So it's like when George Carlin said, like, when you're I love this music. It's like when George Carlin said, like, the only interesting people are like under 10 and over 60.
Yeah.
Like, I think David Brooks, there's some element of that. But it's so hit or miss. All right, David Grisham, Ezra Klein, David Brooks.
So I would have a lot to say to David Brooks if I was alone in a room with him.
I love your work. It's great to meet you. Can you sign this?
Can you sign Virtue?
Yeah.
I would ask his girlfriend to sign Virtue.
Oh, that'd be beautiful.
That's the move.
I know what I would ask him. What are you doing this weekend? Do you want to hang out?
See, that's another Biederman point, though, because I would never ask Ezra Klein that. I might actually ask David Brooks that. That's a good point.
That's the thing is I think that Brooks definitely wouldn't like me having a long conversation with him in a room and re-educating him.
Right.
Well, Ezra Klein's weird, wonky nerd self would love for me to be coming up to him with charts and graphs and all this information. I'd like to say, just real quick, is when I decided to go into media, it was inspired by my hatred of Ezra Klein. So I say, not only do I want to throw Ezra Klein in the gulag, if my comrades will allow me, I would like to be the lead prosecutor in his trial.
Okay, it's a very, very strong vote from Grishko. Matt Leck.
I'm just going to concur with David out of fear of the Texans.
Yeah. Everybody got really, all of a sudden, like, all those Texas jokes I make started to seem very real. Sir, if you'll allow me, I'd like to take the lead.
Like that guy in that.
Matt, do you have anything other than terrified concurrence of your comrade's passion?
Nah, I'm going to do the next one.
You know what? I'm not going to be a contrarian on this one. I think that the only defense I could say is that Ezra Klein might be David Brooks in 20 or 30 years. The only reason, although he actually doesn't have David Brooks' soul or depth, which is quite a comment to say. Like, I think
Brooks has pathos.
Yeah. Yes, Ezra's so surface that he'll just be like, this is great. He's literally like, if the dog in the burning building also was like a horrible media maven.
Yeah.
Like, that's who he is, right?
David Brooks, it's like you can realistically see like a scenario where you meet him at a dinner party or something and you see him in another room 2 hours later and he's just weeping and telling you about how he wanted to be a baseball player.
Dude,
just something weird. And you're like, well, there's something down there.
There's
With Ezra, like the craziest he gets is like, I actually like the concept of Microsoft Clippy. I think that I think it was ahead of its time. You just like, die.
All right, you know what? And I have a really simple reason for this. This was right when I was graduating from college. It was before I was in media. Ezra Klein wrote a column, or he even did an interview with Paul Ryan. And this was a time when Ezra Klein was like the perfect exemplification of all of the problems and the catastrophes of the Obama administration, all the ways in which, like, they were going to come in and do these micro adjustments and let the banks get away with everything and not do anything about the recession and inequality and the jobs crisis. And the fact that on top of it, he felt the necessity to talk to Paul Ryan, who was just like always such a transparent pseudo-intellectual ghoul, and give him a platform to push this stuff, which was just like the most base attack on like anybody that could be remotely vulnerable in this society. And the fact that like Ezra's posturing as being fair was more important than millions of lives, it was just the ultimate sort of disgusting cynicism, and I've never been able to forget that. So I say gulag.
And he did the same thing with Vivek Roy with
yes
healthcare.
Yes, exactly. So I actually, David Brooks is kind of like pondering like, I was reading an Elizabeth Kubler-Ross book and we should be nicer to each other, but also like, I don't know, actually, yeah, invade Lebanon is somehow less grating to me than Ezra Klein. No one that young should be such a dork, let alone get rewarded for it. Go to the gulag.
Absolutely.
Yeah, fuck him. All right, third round. This is very interesting. This is when we're really getting into Mik resistance territory here. Adam Schiff versus Ted Lieu. It's a very interesting vote. Felix Biederman, an avid fan of Vladimir Putin, so this is going to be very close to home for him as part of the Pravda left.
I have a lot of reasons for picking Adam Schiff
Yes.
or Gulag. One,
does it involve Yemen?
No, it doesn't.
Okay,
it doesn't. Number one is that I think Schiff is like more of a cynical salesman.
Yes.
In 2013, he would talk about FISA overreaches, and now his main thing is protecting FISA. He is the face of this sort of like woke CIA resistance bullshit. And he's done okay things in the past. Like he's pushed for Armenian genocide recognition, which is, it's sad that that's even like a thing you would hope for in a Democrat.
And
but
also
it is,
just
something.
to say it's something, but also to say like to be really real about like he represents L.A.
Exactly, that's Glendale specifically.
Yeah, Glendale. I mean it's the right position, but that's like the most parochial local constituent. Like if he didn't do that, he wouldn't represent Glendale.
But yeah, he's just a fucking cynical salesman prick. And also this memo thing, like, it has made me more mentally ill. It has really upset me. Just these two doughy pieces of shit, him and Devin Nunes. I have to see them battle like the lamest Highlanders ever. Just releasing fucking limp dick press releases against each other. You added commas to the memo. Well, you shouldn't have released the memo. Well, you made me release the memo. Fucking both of them. Just, you know what? If we're really going to go Soviet, send them on like a suicide rocket mission. Like Lakia.
You will explore space for great country.
Yeah, just see what it's like when you go out there without a suit on. We'll find it. We don't know. We're going to find out.
Well, that sounds very Meghan McArdle. You can't really know until you've sent somebody without a suit on.
And you have two extremely expendable people in him and Devin Nunes. So that saves the price. I'm doing fiscal conservatism. And I don't think Ted Lieu, I don't think he's cynical. I think he's like a lame guy.
Right.
And he's like his heart, I think, is kind of in the right place. I don't think his politics are amazing, but he's done things that are okay. Like he's pushed for certain things on Yemen, like our involvement with the Saudi UAE mission in Yemen that I thought were good. And I don't think the punishment for being like a lame guy with kind of lame politics, but probably an okay heart, should be gulag. I think re-education for Ted Lieu.
So grounds for re-education. Matt Leck, let's go with you first this time.
I agree. I think Ted Lieu is mainly just really enthusiastic and easily taken by stuff. Like he appeared on, I feel like, The Daily Show, and then the next day he was tweeting like, you could tell he wanted to capitalize on that Daily Show audience. So I agree. Shift to the gulag.
David Grisham.
I feel like Ted Lieu is the professional version of the guy who tweets a thread underneath every single one of Donald Trump's tweets. So for that, gulag.
Wow.
Damn.
Yeah. Well, Schiff has, at least in the past, I think, been directly supportive of the Saudi UAE assault, global fucking mass crime in Yemen. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that almost anybody that has been involved in supporting that could be like a fucking like an indicted co-conspirator in any type of like proper international court. I mean,
when Rand Paul flanks you on the left on that shit.
Yes, that's disgusting. So I feel like that. Yes, like Lou is a goofball. Schiff's a sanctimonious moron. And the other thing, you know, when you talk about woke CIA, I saw somebody, and hopefully they aren't watching this, but, you know, what am I going to do if they were? They're on my Facebook. And I don't even remember what, it was one of these fucking leaks that were happening in the first couple of months of the Trump administration. And I'm also like, unlike some of my comrades on the left, like, I don't really, like, yeah, I think there probably is some weird financial transactions with Russia.
Oh, I think that too. Yeah. I just don't care that much.
And I don't care that much, but you know what? If it's used to damage Trump and it hurts the agenda, cool. I don't have a problem with it. But this person actually wrote, like, they said something, this was a leak that had come out, and they said something like, Trump's learning, like, if you're going to come at the CIA, you best not miss.
Oh.
And I was like, is that something that you want to write to the family of Patrice Lumumba? Is that something that you want to, like every single humanitarian catastrophe from coups in Africa to drones in Pakistan, you want to talk about that agency
also
using a fucking wire quote?
It's also not true because Hezbollah came at the CIA and they're fine. They tortured their Beirut station chief to death, and like they're fine. It was okay. It worked out okay for them.
I feel like that would be a Trump response. I will tell you, Hezbollah, they went after the CIA, and they seem to be fine to me. That I will tell you.
If Trump has one conversation with somebody from Hezbollah, he will become sympathetic.
You think he'll become sympathetic to Hezbollah?
Yeah.
He'll be like, Nasrallah is a great guy. He's a small business guy, too. And by the way, nobody was doing anything for Lebanon Shia. No one. But the Saudis have such an advantage in hustling Trump because they are Trump.
Well, yeah, they've spent their entire lives babying old men with dementia to get what they want.
Exactly.
They were like, like for a moment after Hillary lost, they're like, "Oh fuck, we gave that fucking dying woman $20 million for nothing," and then they just saw the dumbest man alive with hereditary brain diseases, and we're like, jackpot.
Yeah,
we don't even have to give him money. We'll just project his fucking big stupid face in a hotel and he'll just clap his hands like a fucking seal and give us anything.
See, that's what I loved about the story is that the Russian, like, if we accept the premise that there was some attempts of like the Russians was like through our mafia associates in real estate, we will compromise Trump administration, and then it becomes this whole fucking thing. He signs Russia sanctions anyways. He signs off on a nuclear posture review, which escalates the possibility.
Sells weapons to Ukraine.
Sells weapons to Ukraine, nothing happens, and then the Saudis don't do shit except give money to the Clinton Foundation. He wins, and then they're just like, hey, come here, my friend. And he's just like, these are the best people on the planet.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's like so all those, like, you see a lot of like Daily Beast articles about this that are like, the Russian funded YouTube video, and you think it'll be like a big thing, and it's like some shitty YouTube video that got literally 42 views.
It's like, this is Prospect MC from Baltimore. We're talking about why Hillary Clinton's the real Republican.
Yeah,
and we try to get to 700 subscribers.
Yeah,
we got this. You know, this studio don't pay for itself. We got to. Yes,
it's the most struggle YouTube guys. And it's like, do I think that they made it up that Russia paid for it? No.
You should quote Tupac Shakur more.
Yeah.
This will do better. Why don't you use changes in your intro?
Interview intellectual American rapper J. Cole. Went platinum with no features. But I believe that they did that because America does stuff like that. America does these like really stupid things that don't work.
Right.
And the reason I don't give a shit if there was like a financial transaction with Trump and Russia is that shit happens with like every other country.
Right.
And also they didn't appear to like actually get anything. Because the real world is that every state intelligence agency of a major power or regional power is fucking stupid.
Right.
The people of the FSB in like 10 years when they have like the Russian Trump, they're going to be like, oh, I can't believe that our new president is denigrating the FSB, who will still be the dumbest pieces of shit alive, just like our CIA. And you know, I believe that they would do some insane convoluted
You
thing
can
with
thank Obama and Homeland for how fucking stupid liberals have gotten about the CIA.
It's amazing.
Just like
but-
the branding of going from like, at least 24 was like, we're fucking assholes and we torture people and we kill Muslims. And then they went to Homeland and it was all just like, well, in an ideal world, I wouldn't melt Yemeni children to death, but fuck it. What are you gonna do?
They made it.
Yeah,
they made 24 for NPR listeners.
Exactly. Like, he speaks Arabic and studied anthropology.
Zero
so,
Dark 30,
yeah.
one of the worst movies, one of the
So
most infuriating
boring.
movies I've ever seen, and
Yes.
infuriating.
And
'cause
disgusting,
They
right.
made these fucking murderers like tote bag people and shit. They made it feminist to watch this guy get tortured, and I don't think it's a massive change. American liberals have never really been doves. That's always been a myth. There has been some dove contingent, but for the most part, they've been very hawkish.
Right.
They've been supportive of major rat fucking and military operations, but this is just how they got this generation.
That's exactly right. So we got to do our final group of this round, and then we'll do the rest in the post game. After we'll div a little Obama tease for people in the public show after this. But this is another couplet. I agree. Schiff, he's going. He's got to get the fuck out of here. I think Lou, part of his re-education, he would have to definitely be kicked off of Twitter.
Yeah.
I agree.
He has to be on.
Yeah.
He has to get on Gab.
Yeah.
That should be a new criminal justice thing. That guy to compromise with like the right wing local news, he'd be like, all right, you could do 3 months in county, or you can only post on Gab.
Yeah. Fucking Asian faggot.
Yeah. Have I ever
just a barrage. Except all the people using Gab would also need to be in re-education camps, obviously.
They would have to go to LO.
Right.
Yeah, my friend got kicked off of Gab in he did the funniest joke to get kicked off of Gab.
What was the joke?
My friend Sam, he signed up for Gab and his name was the ethical pedophile. I've talked about this before.
That should be a hit on Gab.
Yeah.
That should be a hit. Did you ever? I loved when I watched. I were talking before. I was remembering when I wanted to watch what I loved on to catch a predator. Which, by the way, like, how fucked up are we that was actually a show?
That and Lockup.
Yeah, just so
two
disturbing.
of the most sociopathic. Yeah.
Just horrifying. But the thing that really did crack me up would be that sometimes they would bust people that were so dumb that they really, like, you'd be like, hey, I'm Chris Hansen. What are you doing here? And they would kind of be like, buddy, I'm kind of having a date.
Yeah.
Like, I'm kind of in the middle of something.
Well, they would get a lot of people who were like literally intellectually disabled.
No,
Yeah.
Right. And it was just, oh God, it was horrible. Everybody involved in that production should be in jail. All right. So Mike Cernovich versus Jack. What is it? I mean, this is totally misspelled. Persepiak or Persobiak?
Persobiak.
Can I have another beer, please, guys? Thanks so much. All right. We're starting once again. Felix Biederman, Mike Cernovich, Jack Persobiak.
Man, this is a fucking tough one.
Yeah, dude.
I don't know. It's hard because, one thing you got to give Cernovich is like a survivor. He's like a climber.
Oh, yeah.
He started out as a fucking juice guy.
Right.
Yeah, he started out as like a juicing guy.
Right.
And
thank you.
He broke that what was his name? Conyers shit.
He did. I think that some Republican staffer was okay, so I don't know he broke it, but
yeah,
yes,
that's a good point.
He was handed something that was real by somebody who found him expedient at some time.
Yeah, he's like an operator, and he's like, it's easy and fun to make fun of him.
It's very.
You could gain strength by not jacking off and shit. It's just stupid.
Gain strength.
But he is like kind of a canny operator. I don't know if it's like a savant quality or not. But I think you would have to gulag him because he's like a greater danger than Jack Prylisek, who just sort of seems like a bumbling oaf.
He doesn't even know how to properly cheat on his wife. Yeah, he doesn't even know how to cheat on his wife.
Why would you get on Bumble to cheat on your wife?
Right.
Fucking Bumble?
He's like, I'm going to go on the one app that is still actually primarily focused on creating relationships to go cheat on my wife.
Yeah, Bumble is where like graphic designers lock down 2-star dick.
Well, maybe that's why he was on Bumble.
All
of a sudden, it makes sense.
He doesn't self-evaluate and think, oh, I laid 2-star pipe. He's like, I give a solid 4 pumps. That's twice the market average.
So far greater danger. you're saying Cernovich.
Yeah.
Cernovich.
And I don't really know what Posobiec's deal is. He seems like there's like an emptiness to him that's very disturbing to me. There's just not a lot to him. Like even with Cernovich, there are like aspects to his personality, but like
no, he's he is a man in full.
Right.
For better and basically always for worse.
Pralisek is like even though he like will talk.
His face looks like a stock image.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes.
But I don't know what you would yield out of like re-educating him, but I don't know. Maybe
he could be like some type of low-level computer like coder or something.
I guess
at like the future like I don't know Department of Water or some shit. All right, David Grisham, Cernovich, Posobiec. Remember what he said in that video too? He's like, why would you go get hamburger when you got steak at home? I mean, he literally said that. He literally
Wait, who said that?
No, he was explaining why he wasn't cheating on his wife when he was on Bumble.
Oh
I mean,
my
when
God.
somebody literally says that line in a non-joking manner, it's like the people who say cuck non-ironically are like, you've told on yourself you're a virgin. Like that. I mean, it's just like, really? You actually just said that?
I gotta say, for me, the Pizzagate scandal was very true to home. I was living in DC at the time, and Comet Ping Pong, by the way, no one says this enough. Great pizza, good times.
Yeah, I bet it was. I bet
When
you had great times.
When you're here, you're family forever.
Like Grisham's coming in, he's like, I know I'm a low-level guy, but I mean, I can't get some children in here. What the hell happened? I thought the Democrats were supposed to be the party of the people.
Order the pepperoni pizza. But I mean, look, one of these.
The code is so obvious that it's pepperoni.
The most popular.
It's like, you want a pizza? People
ever.
like, fuck. They're like, no, I'm not trying to have a child orgy with the UAE ambassador. I just want a pepperoni pizza.
Martin Scorsese last film should be Comet Ping Pong in the style of Casino.
Yeah.
Where it's like
we're a bunch of fucking guys. None of us wanted to fuck kids, but these fucking weirdos did.
Yeah. Bring back,
we got to get on the Stones music.
Yeah, bring back De Niro as Ace Rothstein. He's like, I thought I had enough money, but my daughter wants to go to the new school. Now I have to operate this child torture ring.
The Blake. And now we come in, and Podesta's the fucking boss, although he's a pain in the ass. No one fucking says it.
Podesta is like Artie. He's on the phone with his mom, and he's bugged, and he's just saying all.
Yes, he blows everything because he's on the phone, and she goes, and he's like, these kids, they won't shut the fuck up, and his mom's just like, I don't like that kind of language, John. And he's just like, I'm sorry, Ma. Anyways, we got to figure out a way of luring them out of the schools. And then it's like a fast cut Stones music turned to like Mira Tandon coordinating something with like a shipment.
She's the Kansas City boss.
Yeah. She's like, I told you the fucking kids are hyper. I fucking told you. I'm gonna write that spec script.
Oh man,
let's write. You want to write that script? Let's do it.
I'm trying to break into Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly.
You imagine the scene from the casino, the House of the Rising Sun. Hillary is the one who just says, "Knock them all off."
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
They're in the final. That's the classic scene where all the old bosses, they're all sitting. They all look like shit, and they're all. And you can see, Huma's like, oh, no. He's tough. Seth's not going to talk. That's a stand-up guy. And she goes, as far as I'm concerned, why not? Why take the risk?
What difference does it make?
Okay, but
Prolisac or Cernovich.
Cernovich is definitely going into gulag. Posobiec, he can go to re-education camp. Maybe he can learn a better way to cheat on his wife than going on public.
Lek?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, let's face it. If we go to a second round, Posobiec's just going to be gulagged against any of the other three that have been re-educated.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. All right. It's strategic thinking from Matt Lek. I'm saying Posobiec goes to the gulag because Mike Cernovich has literally personally benefited my career I mean, yeah, are you fucking
That's
kidding
true.
me? That guy's great. So I say the more the merrier, and I would like a Who's Laughing Now drop. I've missed that drop. Have you heard that this is one of the funniest drops that has ever happened? After
Laughing now, Sam.
All right, everybody. So here's what we're going to do. Briefly, I love this beat too. Nas James Brown beats. That's like, to me, that I guess that is real 90s New York shit, but I like it.
I love Nas. And also this James Brown song, it plays when you walk into the casino in the Las Ventura level of GTA San Andreas.
Really?
The best GTA game.
That's awesome.
Yes, it does.
That is super good music selection for that. Oh, that's
Oh
cool.
yeah, the GTA has great music.
Some of the best.
I know
Freddie
that
Gibbs is in 5.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Shit. Maybe I actually have to play that game.
It's the way. I think it's like the not that good. I don't know. I have fear for the future of GTA because they've made so much money on GTA Online. I don't know if the single player campaigns will ever be the same.
There's so many people that are getting psyched in my Discord right now, and I wish that I don't even have the knowledge base for games to even protect. Like, there's areas like because I used to I played sports and I followed sports to a degree, and I don't follow them as much as I would like to, but I have enough baseline to pretend like, oh yeah, no, because their fucking zone is fucked up. When people talk about games, I'm just like, yeah. The online shit, yep.
That's what I do with politics, and I have a show about it. You just sound really good at agreeing.
Yeah,
you
that's
can get
all.
anywhere.
Well, no, that's you're just like, well, yeah, that's dude. It's been a big fucking role shift from just co-hosting Majority Report and being able to be like, what if Obama was? He said, yeah, "Fuck you, Whitey," and then like, yeah, man, it's like corporations, right? And you got to fucking main host this shit. You actually got to do research.
And the way I do it,
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what it comes down to? It comes down to who's going to get more votes. No one's been noticing that I've said that for 18 months.
I don't know
It's
why.
all I continue to say on my show.
I don't know why you haven't been on CNN yet. So, okay, before we do go to the post game, and we will finish our gulag or reeducation. We both we share fans, and people are very interested to hear a sort of back and forth or go between of Obama impersonations. So
Yeah.
it's a very awkward, hackneyed transition, but fuck it, it just is what it is.
You don't have to. That's like,
yeah, just do it.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. So what's like, not only what is the impression, but like what's the story? Like what's the origin story of your Obama impression?
Man, I think like, so we've been like doing more periscopes of the show because we've had like so many like long car rides,
right?
Just like going on tour to different cities and shit where, you know, there's not a subway system or something and you have to like hop in a car for like an hour to go to a venue or something. We just get bored and we have these like very long, complicated riffs. Like we had one about like the Senate subpoenaing Patreon that was really funny, but just incomprehensible to anyone who just doesn't follow.
That doesn't have to deal with Patreon.
Yeah, and just like the types of people on Patreon and stuff like that. But I think one time,
like, I'm trying to create a lesbian gaming industry, and I want $5 million. For 50 cents, I'll tell you that you represent the patriarchy over text message once a week.
Exactly. It was like the Senate. We were doing like the Senate interrogating them, but it was just too good. But one day, I think we were stuck in traffic and we just started. I don't know who it was. It may have been Will or Brendan. It was like, I eat dog.
And we from Indonesia.
Yeah, from Indonesia. Barry Sotero.
Yep.
Because all those
don't just taste like chicken, taste better.
Yeah, well, because we had always talked about the Obama conspiracy theories because they're the funniest
They're
ones.
the best ones.
Obama's the most squeaky clean like Democratic president ever because
Right.
he always knew he was going to be president. Like he
Right.
always was going for it, and he's not. I don't think like in his personal life he's like a piece of shit like Bill Clinton. I think he's very clearly not that.
No, he's a good dude.
So it's
if we're talking on that level, he really is the closest.
I think
just
like as far as like
yeah.
his interpersonal relationship.
Yeah, no, not politically.
Yeah. But he like, so it's so funny that the conspiracies, they're just like not really giving us anything to work with. How about you were a gay prostitute for some reason?
That was
like what?
That was the best one.
Yeah, and
you're just like, Watch the Bulls game. It's like having sex with your best friend.
Yeah.
Suck each other's dicks. Watch the game.
Those ones, and the Muslim ones are really funny because
Right.
he's like is the most boring technocrat guy,
Right.
And like,
Right.
I think very consciously made an effort to ramp up the drone war because it's the most technocratic prosecution of war is to
Right.
do it that way,
Right.
And because he didn't want to appear to be soft on terror, but people were still
And there's
like,
no political downside. I mean,
Yeah.
let's be real. I mean, a lot more people should care about it, but it's the easiest calculus
Exactly.
from a cynical point of view to make.
But it didn't matter because he was like black. People like these. There were enough like conservatives who were like, "You eat dog because you won't eat pork. You wear Muslim garb when you're alone." And it was it's so absurd. It's like
There was a
most
great-
amount of reaching. Like some of those Bill Clinton conspiracies, like they kind of like. There are ridiculous ones like the Arkansas death list, but there are other ones that, like, as we've gone on in time, it's like maybe they were right about that one or
There's
whatever,
a
right?
part with Bill Clinton where even the most extreme ones, you're just like,
I
you
could see him doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like,
yeah.
all right, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna turn meta into I know a young, innovative entrepreneur named Pablo Escobar, and he's got a
Yeah, yeah.
dynamic idea for how we can do a sister city program.
People always connected him with fucking Barry Seal, which I thought was
No, I
funny.
know.
Yeah.
I actually know people who take that super seriously, who like get deep in that drug world, and they're like, you know, Mena and Seal and Clinton. I mean, I don't know how deep I go into that shit, but at
I
the
don't
same time
know.
with Clinton, it's like, yeah, you're right. It's not like you think on your face. With a lot of Obama stuff, you're like, dude, how racist and deranged do you have to be
Exactly.
to believe that?
Exactly.
Whereas with Clinton, it's like, I don't believe that, but I don't think that. Yeah, it's like not.
I don't think he's too good of a person
Exactly.
to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Obama's don't even really make him a bad person, though. It doesn't make you a bad
No.
person to like be a sex worker. It doesn't make you a bad person to even eat dog, I guess, you know, but or
Right.
be a Muslim. But it's like it's so obviously reaching that it's super funny. And that voice is funny because Obama has like a very archetypical Midwestern cadence.
Right.
And it's like I think he's been consciously kind of folksy with his pauses
Oh,
and his
totally.
ums. And it's funny to imagine him just going out there and being like, yeah, regret eating dog because it's unclean. and then like anything,
haram.
like anything, we're just like, what if he was the Joker? What if he was this?
All right, so
What
do
if-
that. I like that. What is the Joker? The Joker one.
Let's put a smile on all 57 states.
my Obama, it's funny. It's similar in result because all I thought that would be funny is like everybody either did Obama where they just did like a straight like let me be clear, or they did like some version of the anger translator thing, except
Right.
it was all like, you know, secretly he's like, what the fuck's going on down there, white boy, blah blah blah. And what I just thought was funny is if you just literally was like, no, this dude is like a 5%er, like deep.
Yeah,
Nation of
he's Lord
Islam.
Jamar.
Yes, like he is.
Macklemore is trying to make hip hop gay.
No, yes, exactly. He's literally like his ideology is like he should be on a corner in like a black Israelite outfit, but he's still Obama.
Yeah.
So then you have like these whole like you'd be like, you know, like the same questions like, so what about the idea that you were pretty, you know, you had this very like sort of aggressive agenda and you didn't actually do that much. It's like, well, let me be clear. You know, the white race doesn't disappear overnight. But if you look at the longer trends, white mortality increasing, fewer white babies being born. Look, the devil isn't thrown back into a cave overnight. The arc of history is long, but it bends toward Sharia. So you do like just Obama is that dude, except it's all like
You have these bitter people in hip hop clinging to their gay mafia to try to silence people like Lord Jamar.
What Brother Jamar say is that when the gay Arati got into the hip hop game, see, a lot of these brothers, they're on the down low, and they come out and they talk like they run the game. Meanwhile, I know for a fact that he sucked Elton John's dick. So it becomes kind of difficult to take them seriously as artists.
Let me be clear. If there was a gay rapper that flowed, I would give him props. But there just has never been one, and there will never be one, I fear.
Look, can a gay rapper float? Theoretically, yes. Practically, no.
You know what I love about, we're just doing Obama Lord Jamar, but what I love about Lord Jamar is that he's the most like virulently homophobic rapper I've probably ever seen.
He is breathtakingly homophobic.
But he starred on Oz, which featured like the most male penetration I've ever seen on TV.
That's true,
Like,
but it wasn't like nice male penetration. I mean, like you could think like to yourself, like, yeah, like they're all basically raping each other. Like I could. See
It wasn't. There were a lot of consensual relationships
That's true.
on Oz.
That's true. Well,
but it was mostly violent. Yeah,
it was mostly violent. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe he wasn't as crazy back then.
No, he's always been like that. He's always kind of been like that.
He must. You know what it is, dude? Is I'm sure a lot of people are, but they didn't have a Twitter account. That
Yeah,
really
I
was
guess
just
so.
a
I
like
guess so.
massive
Yeah.
example for people like telling themselves. Like, could you imagine Old Dirty Bastard's Twitter account?
It would be. I think that's funny when people are like, they expect rappers to have their exact social beliefs just because they like their music.
Right.
I honestly don't really give a shit if someone does, if I like their music. It's like, well, I don't have to like them as a person.
Right.
Like I like their music, but part of that like view of culture is, the only avenue which you can take up your politics in.
Exactly.
Is also believing that the people who make the entertainment you like are aligned with you. I don't give a shit if like Migos agree with me. Who
now
fucking
Migos
cares?
is speaking some truth, and we're gonna have to say fundamentally what happens to them. So I wouldn't be surprised. You got some brothers now. They got some platform. They've got some shine. They're speaking some truth. In 1 year time, their mothers are going to be kidnapped by a giant pink float. And you will see them on MTV telling kids to be gay. Because that's how it works. It's a cartel. It's gay cartel. And there's nothing more vicious than a gay cartel.
That is my favorite. I think everyone has like a crank religion. Like for Jews, it's Chabad.
Right.
Like we've got Chabad.
Yep. Christians,
it's like they have a buffet. They have the Whole Foods.
Yeah, they
hot
have
bar of
everything.
Crank
They have
options.
every option of crank.
African American crank religions
is awesome.
They're same as like you have Nation of Islam, Moorish Science Church, 5%ers, and I think they're cool because it's like the Christian crank religions. Some of them are apocalyptic and have like a dark vision of the world, but most of them are kind of like, no, you're extra special.
Right.
But with like the African American ones, it's like the one thing that links them all is that like white people are all robots who want to make you gay, which is fucking cool. Like I think like out of all like the religions that have like a cool backstory, like Mormon, pretty cool, interesting, made up backstory. But the Yaku backstory is like my favorite.
It's the best
it's the fucking
thing
best
ever.
one.
So you know your true nature.
Oh, but have you
He's out there talking to Big Dame. Meanwhile, he's sucking Barry Diller's dick. I got photographic evidence.
Did you ever see that video that like it was like a black Israelite who's like it was some like crank thing about how like women don't naturally get periods and they only get it from eating white food. Just imagining Obama doing that at the State of the Union.
Oh, say, when the white man introduced swine, it says in the Quran, right? It says in the Hadith, and then she bled. Now, what does that mean? Let's break down the etymology, brothers and sisters. he's got one of the Malcolm X charts behind him, like Biden and Ryan can't sit there, or Boehner, whoever the fuck it was, they can't sit there because he's got like a white chalkboard. It's like Yakub, period, white food chain.
Well, that would the equivalent if he did that and people were like, that would be him. That would like if Obama was really the equivalent to Trump and he did that.
Right.
And then like Anna Navarro was like, well, I thought he was presidential when he said that women only get their periods from eating white onions and things that came from Turkey, which is where they exiled white people to.
She's like, I want to be clear. I don't agree with President Obama. I am not a member of the 5%. But when he stood up there clearly and he said that eating oysters are why the black woman bleeds, I believe him. He become president on that day.
That would be so. You shift the Overton window that way, like David Brooks is like, well, he has a point. All these rappers suck Barry Diller's dick. It's true. So what?
Now, I learned back at Stuyvesant not to have a problem with sucking Barry Diller's dick, but we shouldn't deny the truth that everybody knows, and it is common knowledge that Kodak Black sucked Barry Diller's dick. It's beautiful. Okay, folks, here's what we're going to do. We got to go to the post game. Felix is staying with me. Honored. Very fun having you, my friend. First of many, hopefully. We have to finish gulag or reeducation.
Oh, that's right.
We still have a couple more rounds to go through. I'm sure that we'll probably revisit our script idea of Pizzagate in a Martin Scorsese fashion. Do you have a Bob Marley song lined up for the outro? Everybody, as I say, we are past our first 1,000 patrons. We launched in August. I appreciate all of you so much. It's how we sustain the show, keep it growing and expanding what we do. Patreon.com/TMBS. I want to thank Matt Leck, David Slavic, David Grisham. Thanks to Felix Biederman from Chapo Trap House for being with us this week. Check them out. They do a great show. They're on Patreon too, obviously. This weekend, it's a deep dive illicit history on Macron's first year in the neoliberal agenda. And if you're just joining, check out the past ones. Thomas Sankara and Burkina Faso, the one with Mike Hanna that we just did on the African National Congress, the drought in Cape Town, crony capital, and many, many other things. The calls will be on in a minute. The IMs are on. We're starting to get your Discord questions. Thanks, everybody. See you in the post game. Allahu Akbar.
Rock you